You got to imagine this, folks, because basically Henry and I send off this little scratch track.
We have no idea what
just
anybody's
to guide everybody. And then Chris will send back a drum part. We'll be like, fucking hell, that sounds amazing.
Yeah.
And then Charles will, send something back that we've never heard anything that they're about to play. And it's just like this big surprise every time. You're just like, wow. It's like a Christmas present every time you get to open a box.
Welcome to Season 2 of the Aloud podcast. In this season, Jen and Henry break down the writing and recording of the latest Aloud album, Apollo 6. Since they've lived the majority of their lives in Boston and Miami, bad language is liberally used. So if you're listening at work and have issues with foul words like fuck, shit, and Ted Cruz, you've been duly warned. Have it!
All right, track 3, Meditation for the Housebound.
For the Housebound.
Miles and miles of country where I go. Miles and miles of country filled with snow. High flying bird in sky, wave as you pass her by. Miles and miles of country where I go. Sky is big and blue.
Yeah, so again, bedroom, guitar, pedal board, practice amp. Most of these songs came pretty quick for me. This one, and usually if it's not coming, I'll just put it down, come back the next day, whatever. I was feeling really stubborn that day and wanting to write a particular kind of song. I don't know. I just had this rock and roll horn driven thing in my head. And with some kind of droney thing. And I just kept going endlessly, trying to, I had so many different versions of that. Boom, that ba da 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 boom 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 boom. I made so many different versions on the one string on that guitar.
Wasn't it slower too initially?
I think it was slower. Yeah, it was. I was just trying to come up with something.
I imagine what would be if you were standing there with me. I lose all my will to find the peace I know it must reside.
And any other day, I would have been fuck this, I'll come back to this tomorrow. And I was just no, I'm gonna get this now. This is gonna, I really forced my way through it. And that almost never works, except that day. I'll never do that again. That's totally stupid. But I did get this fucking great track that I love out of it. And just, again, the visual, that miles and miles of country where I go, miles and miles of country filled with snow, those were words straight from just ad-libbing. And it was so evocative, right? It just conjured this image and this idea of space and feeling vast and open. And yes, I had just started meditating because anxiety is a bitch. And I think that was just what I was feeling. And I wanted all of that to come out in the track. And those lyrics, for me, are just some of my favorite lyrics because, again, that it just really targeted where I was in that moment.
Real quick, what are we doing?
What's that?
What are we doing?
Oh, we're trying to get a vocal on Meditation for the Housebound.
Yeah. Fuck you. Fuck you.
Uh-oh.
Sky is big and blue, and so am I. Sky is big and blue, and so am I. Space between it and me feels deep. So who am I?
I'm basically talking about all these places I couldn't visit, you know, too, right? Like, and just wanting to be outside and being stuck inside, you know what I mean? This is like the track from space to me, you know what I mean? This is like
Yeah, no, it's definitely one of the wildest sounding songs that we've ever done.
a fucking bear. And
Yeah.
it has like 2 bridges, or like the way, depending on how you're looking at it, there might be 2 choruses, or, you know, 2 bridges in the middle 8 and this and that. And it's got all these different parts and the strangest structure, and trying to communicate what was the chorus to the guys was like, what is that? You know, nobody.
Yeah, because we're not in
out.
person. Yeah.
Yeah, like it, you know, so that was just yeah, it's just a real beast, and it's its own little original thing, and it makes you feel so big when you're singing it, you know, like you're at the top of a mountain, you know. And Chris's drum track is so good. Charles's bass tone and his bass line is amazing. The horn parts are great. It's one of my favorite vocals. Lots of crazy guitar effects. You're again going wild with the pedals. And yeah, it's just a very big song. It's a very big moment. But I remember just listening to like rough mixes even of what we were doing, driving around in the car and listening to that, and just like feeling really happy with how, you know, it was turning out and all of that. But this was the one also that when we were like trying out people to mix this record, it was like, give them this track because it's going to be the hardest, the hardest to mix, you know? And then there's a bunch of sound effects with the birds at the beginning and the end, and the stylophone that's so weird doing the riff that...
Yeah, no, we crammed a lot of stuff into that
again, it's another very riffy track. Right, da 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 da, and then brung brum bum 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 brum 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 bum. You know, it's just any little guitar thing I could stick in. I was like, if you can sing it, I will play it. You know, like it's just happening.
Yeah.
No, it's very cool. It's one of my favorite tracks I've ever written.
Yeah,
it's the most me, man.
That bass line that Charles did too. Like to me, that like sonically, anyway, like typifies like kind of what. I've one of the things I've wanted us to like do, you know, again, like sound wise, you know, and just like even down to like just, I mean, because the bass doesn't even sound like a fucking bass. Yeah. You know, it's just doing all these like weird, you know, things, and like that little riff. The first time I heard that, I was like, holy shit.
I mean, he fucking blew me away when you gotta imagine this, folks, because basically Henry and I send off this little scratch track.
We have no idea what
just
anybody's
to guide everybody. And then Chris will send back a drum part and we'll be like, fucking hell, that sounds amazing.
Yeah.
And then Charles will, you know, send something back that we've never heard anything that they're about to play. And it's just like this big surprise every time. And you're just like, wow, fucking amazing. Like you're watching this song or hearing this song develop, you know, over the course of a couple of weeks as, you know, these tracks come in, and you're just like, you know, it's like a Christmas present every time you get to open a box, you know, when you see the email, you know, like it's just so cool because these bandmates of ours are so fucking talented. Yeah. And it was just truly, it was fun. It was like, oh man, you think maybe so-and-so will get the track over this week, you know, it'd be like something in an event to wait for.
Yeah.
There was literally nothing else going on, folks.
And like even and like what you're saying, like, you know, this is like the one we sent to a few folks to like mix just to see if they could get it. If they can get it, you know, because like again, this is like in our minds the most difficult one to mix, and like of course, you know, Benny Grotto who
who knows us in and out.
yeah, like and looking back on it, it makes sense that the person that we've been working with for the last like 11 years
Yeah.
would know how to mix a sort of like, or basically like how to make that Aloud record sound like an Aloud record,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
It's like, of course, so it was like when we got the mix back from Benny, like right from the beginning, it was like, fuck, yeah, like
It's on. Yeah,
he's adding,
This is it.
you know, not to slight anybody else, you know,
Yeah,
but
it just came together very quickly.
you know, but yeah, like he just had that edge that nobody could, you know.
Well, you know, he had that advantage of just knowing us and just being such a good friend, really knowing us, you know.
Yeah. The sound effects too, I thought this was like, because I remember, you know, just because you have all this time on your hands and you start getting into different things and stuff. It was reading about like music concrete,
Right.
you know, and it's basically like, maybe I'm getting this wrong, but basically it's just like, you know, having like sound effects and stuff and like incorporating noises into
the performance,
into the piece,
of the track. Yeah.
you know,
Totally.
like I remember even this didn't make it on the record, but just even things like fucking around with like wine glasses with water.
Yeah.
And then like retuning them after the fact and like doing loops and stuff like that.
Yeah,
you know,
I
so
love that kind of shit. That's like all that stuff you also like read about on Beatle records and whatever else. And it's just like, it's so like that's using the studio as another instrument.
yeah, you know, and it's like, yeah, like whether it was like the gunshot and like Comeback Kid or like Chris like counting it off and like just like keeping
You just use all
random
of that.
shit.
Totally.
And
you don't like take it out. You make it part of the performance.
yeah, and I think this one, I can't remember if we kept the bell on this one or not, but there's like the seagulls, obviously.
There was a meditation bell at the end. You know what it was though? It was like the meditation bell is supposed to. I forget why this. It just didn't make sense where it was. I don't remember exactly now, but it was basically like I wanted it to feel like you were waking up from a dream, and you're outside. You know what I mean? And it felt to me like the bell wouldn't be outside.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
So it would take you out of that natural environment that, like, you know, that, you know, coming out of your head, coming out of the being inside and whatever else, and really wanting to be in nature, you know.
Yeah.
And just sort of, I just had this image of someone like waking up on the forest grass and being near the seashore and walking over to the seashore because they've been like, woken up by the seagulls, you know.
Okay, so I'm going to give you 2 bars into that verse and you're just going to do it a few times. That's it.
All right.
Yeah. Other fun thing about this one was it's just the first song we've done too that like features a flute
Oh yeah.
on it.
Right.
And I can't remember when this happened, but like it must be like an outdoor hang or something with Elena and Matt, and it just came up. She's like, you know, I play flute, you know. I was like, really? Like,
Put some flute on the record.
Oh, well, we got to put a fucking flute on it, yeah.
So we did.
Yeah, so we did, yeah, and it was just so great. Like when we finally got like this is like, you know, maybe like a year and a half in when we're able to, we're all vaccinated and everything, and we actually record, you know, and like she brought the flute and it was like, this is just really fucking cool, you know, like.
Yeah, no, another you know, color to paint with.
What do you want me to say?
In the next episode of the Aloud podcast.
I was like, we need to say Born and Moon again because it's the title of the song, Henry. So we're gonna tag the end of the song.
That's the
this
struggle.
This is where the musicality comes in.
That's always the struggle between you and me. It's like, it's the fucking title. Fuck them. You're like, no, you got to say it again.
Apollo 6 is out now on vinyl, CD, and digital at aloud.bandcamp.com. Have a nice day.